Today I want to take a look at user profile service and how to migrate time zone preferences. Here we're looking at SharePoint Server on-prem with the managed service applications, and in that we have the user profile service. When we come in to manage the user profile service, we'll see an option for manage user profiles that lets us drill into a single user. We can do a search for the name of the domain, find everyone on-prem, even drill in and check out one user named George, scroll to the very bottom, search for the word zone, and here it is, your time zone preference. This is something where you can set your time zone, be it, Eastern for New York and DC, maybe Central for Dallas or Chicago, and Pacific for LA, Seattle. Whatever time zone you have, this is where you can apply it, and it will go global across all site collections. So this is a preference that follows the user across all sites. With SharePoint Online, we have the SharePoint Online Admin Center. If you come in and do more features on the left, you'll see User Profile Service. When we come into Open, you'll see the User Profile Service screen. This should look very familiar to how on-prem looks. Coming into the Manage User Profiles, we can search, pull up one particular user, and go through all of their attributes. Searching the page for the word zone, fastest way to get there, you can come in and see the exact same setting for time zone that SharePoint Online has, that also SharePoint Server on-prem has. It's the exact same setting. This does come with the product. It's a native field, nothing you have to add. It's available on both sides, SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint Online. Now to migrate that data, we're going to use PowerShell and some connections using both modules. So looking at this sample code, we need to load both modules for SharePoint Server and SharePoint Online. We need to provide URLs for both the source, SharePoint Server, and the target, which is SharePoint Online. Here we're going to have source, SharePoint Server. And then really what we do is we open a user profile manager to feed the loop to go through all the profiles and parse out the inputs. This is going to be the time zone expressed as an integer. Now the time zone values are kind of strange. They are expressed as an integer. 11 is going to be US Central Time. And for other potential values, 10 is Eastern, 12 is Mountain, 13 is Pacific, and so forth. But those will be the numbers you need for most major US cities. To apply the value into SharePoint Online on the target, we use this command for the set PMP user profile property. The value for time zone is right here. It's SPS time zone. That's the internal name of the field. And then of course at the bottom, we finish things out with a little bit of logging that goes to a timestamp. And we also have a measure of duration, which is going to be minutes and seconds. How long did it take to execute? That's the sample code, 64 lines, PowerShell to read on-prem and write to the cloud. So here we have our user profile service locally, SharePoint Server, user profile in SharePoint Online. We have code that can push the data from the on-prem into online. When you execute this particular code, you will be prompted for login and provide your credentials to SharePoint Online. For the local system, you're already logged in. You have a Windows RDP session, you have a Windows desktop, and it's going to use the current user to connect to SharePoint Server locally. With the online, you're going to get a pop-up window asking you to authenticate. There might be multi-factor involved on this. It could ping to your phone for a text message code. But once you complete the pop-up dialog for SharePoint Online, it'll start looping through profiles. Now in this case, we're seeing a lot of error messages. That's intentional for this demo because these user accounts are not found. The accounts that I have in the server, SharePoint Server source, and in SharePoint Online Cloud are different. So here you can see it looping through users on the local system that are not found in the cloud. And that's okay because I'm using a mapping of the email address to the UPN. Now with most large companies, that's going to work out perfectly fine. Where your user email address with SharePoint Server on-prem matches up to the user principal name for SharePoint Online Cloud. Those match together, and that's definitely something we want. And looking through the rest of the code, we have the interactive prompt. This is going to support multi-factor. So if you do have MFA for your admin accounts, and you will need to have SharePoint admin role. you need to have the admin role. That's going to be a requirement to be able to touch user profiles. So that's really the code, the requirements, and the fields on both sides. This is something you could extend for any property. So in this particular demo, we focused on time zone and looking at moving the time zone preference. But you could extend this exact same pattern to move the about me, to move the floor, office location, any other custom attributes, potentially their skills, interests, department, language preferences, birthday. I mean, any of these attributes that users may have filled out in their profile, if you want to preserve and migrate these values, you want to keep them, you want to migrate to SharePoint Online, populate the UPS fields, that's something you can absolutely do. So while this example focuses on time zone, the only thing you need to do to extend it is come in and replace 2 lines of code, the one where we read the time zone and the one where we write the time zone. So if we're reading the time zone up here and we're writing it with the set PMP command, those are the only 2 lines you need to change, and you could move any of the other fields that you'd like. So this is how we can support time zone preferences, moving it into SharePoint Online and preserving the user preferences. Thanks for watching.